Good morning, Barracuda Bunch. Welcome back to another day of Summer Kids Club programming. We're so glad you joined us today because we have a very fun topic in store for you. Now, before, I just want to let you know my name is Sarah. I work in the education department here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, and right now I am standing in front of our penguin exhibit. Now, we're not going to focus just on penguins today, but we started here for a very special reason because today we're going to talk all about baby animals. I know it just sounds so cute just saying we're going to talk about baby animals. And our penguins here, they're not babies, but some of our penguins came or hatched here. So they laid eggs, they hatched here, and we had the baby penguins. And so we have some pictures we can show you. And we'll talk all about baby animals and how some animals are born, because not all animals in the ocean are born in the same way. Some hatch from eggs, some animals give live birth. There's lots of different ways. And then some babies, they look different than their adults, and some babies look exactly like their adults. So we're going to talk all about baby animals by looking at a couple different animals, and we're going to take look at some pictures of some very cute little creatures that we have here. Now, before we get started talking about all of those super cute baby animals, we do want to share our text line with you, because while you're watching today, if you have any questions or observations or things you want to share with us, we would love, love, love to hear from you. So right here, we have a number that was just put up by my friend Carrie, who's controlling everything you see behind me. And that number is 562-286-1838. And you can text us in any questions, observations, any thoughts you have. And they're going to go to Carrie, and she's going to send them over to me. Now, if you're watching this live, so it's Thursday morning at 9 a.m., you can go ahead and text us. But if you're watching this program later, which is great as well, we still want to hear from you, but we're not always watching that text line. So you can use that email address that you see right below the phone number. That's live@lbaop.org, and email us your questions, and we'll get back to you that way. All right, Barracuda Bunch, are you ready to explore some baby animals? Excellent. Well, I'm going to step off the screen for just a moment, and we can take a look at our penguins here. So this is one of our webcams. So we have cameras in or focused on a lot of our exhibits here. And that's why you can watch our animals even if you're not visiting us. And they're live. So what we're seeing here, if I went up to our penguin exhibit, we would see the same thing. So these are our Magellanic penguins. And like I said, we have some babies who hatched here. So our colony, our flock of penguins, I think is around 20 or 21. And not all of them were born here, but we do have a handful of these penguins who were born here. Now, before we take a look at the babies, I want us to make a couple observations of what the adults look like. We've got them moving around. They're pretty active this morning, which is great for us to see. But let's think about what colors or patterns you see on their body. And then we'll take a look at the baby and see if they look the same or different. Oh, that was cute. The penguin over here just shook his little tail feathers. So what I notice on our penguins is they're basically two colors. Did you see those two colors? Yeah, that's right. They're black and white. Now, over here, we can see the back of their body. It's pretty much all black. And that's pretty common. We see the back of an animal is one color. And then these ones that are facing forward, we can see their bellies are a different color. So our penguins are black on their back and white on their belly. But there is some pattern on their belly. If we look at these two right here, they've got the stripes right here, kind of around their neck, and then up on their head. So they're a little bit of mix, black and white on their head. Their belly is white. You can see on this one, they even have little freckles. So some penguins have these little freckles, and we can actually use those little freckles to tell the penguins apart, because not all of them have that same little freckle pattern. All right, so they've got this solid black back, that white belly, and some black and white mix on their head, and then some little freckles. All right, so that is what our adult Magellanic penguin look like. Are you ready to take a look at what our babies look like? All right, let's see. So we're going to switch to another picture so you can see what the babies look like. So for penguins, the female is going to lay the egg, but they both, the male and the female, mom and dad, they build a nest. And so for our penguins, they have these little burrows or little tunnels in their exhibit, which you kind of saw them hanging around. And they'll go into those burrows and they'll pull pieces of leaves and twigs and palm fronds, and they'll build a nest. The female will lay the egg, and then both mom and dad will take turns, what's called incubating, or sitting on and keeping that egg warm until it hatches. And when it hatches, ta-da! This is our first, I guess our second dose of cuteness, but our first dose of a baby animal cuteness today. What do you all think? I know it's so cute. It looks so fluffy. But think about what those adult Magellanic penguins look like. Does this animal look the same as those adults? I agree, it does not. So here is an instance where the baby, once it hatches, looks very different from mom and dad. So when the baby penguins are born, they're very fluffy. They have all what we call these downy feathers. So all these feathers you see here, it kind of looks like fur, but those are actually feathers, but they're really soft and fluffy feathers. Now those adult Magellanic penguins, they have some downy feathers, but they're underneath their outer feathers. So they actually have 2 layers of feathers. So if we were kind of to move the feathers around on an adult, the under layer, sort of in between all those outer feathers, we would see some really soft, fluffy feathers, but then they're covered with that other layer of thick feathers. And that allows these animals to be waterproof when they go into the water. And that way they can stay nice and warm when they're swimming in cold water. But take a look at this little chick. It just has only these fluffy feathers. So this little chick isn't going to be going in the water because then those fluffy feathers would get all wet and waterlogged, and it would be very uncomfortable. It would make the animal really cold, and it wouldn't be very safe or healthy for them. So the baby penguin is going to stay out of the water. It's going to be cared for from mom and dad, and then eventually they start to grow. Now, as they grow, their body changes again. So we're going to take a look at what we call a juvenile penguin. So we've got baby, so that's like hatched out of an egg, and then we have juvenile, which is kind of like a kid or a teenager, and then they become an adult. And take a look at these juveniles. Now, we have 2 other penguins, or penguin stages we can compare these juveniles to. Do they look like the baby, all fluffy with their downy feathers? Not quite. Do they look fully like the adults we saw at the very beginning? Also not quite. So these are kind of in the middle. Now what you can see is they're starting to get their adult feathers, and they have that little bit of color change. When we were looking at the penguins on our penguin beach, we noticed that their back was black and their front was, or their belly was white. And it was kind of hard to see with that penguin chick, but they were pretty much all one color, that kind of gray, downy feather color. But in these juveniles, we've got a little bit of darker feathers here and a little bit of lighter here, but we don't quite have those stripes on their chest just yet. So the juveniles, they sort of have an in-between coloring. And then, as they grow a little bit more, eventually they'll turn into the adult feathers, and we'll go back to Penguin Beach to take a look at those. Now, the way that they change their feathers is what's called molting. Now, all birds molt. It's just a natural process. It's how they replace their feathers, because after they're moving around and swimming or flying, their feathers, they get kind of worn out. Oh, we switched to our highlights. We're going to go back to live. Give us just a moment. There we go. This is this morning. Oh, look, they're getting their exhibit cleaned. So most birds, or birds will molt. They lose their feathers because their feathers get worn down. But for most birds, they kind of lose a feather here, they lose a feather there, a couple more there. And it's a whole gradual process, kind of happens over the year. But for penguins, they have what's called a catastrophic molt, where they molt all their feathers within a couple of days. And that's because they go in the water a lot, and that water's really cold. And if so, they are losing patches of their feathers, and there's little spots where there's no feathers, and they go in the water, that can make their body really cold. So the penguins, they stay out of the water for a couple days, they lose all their feathers at once, and then they regrow their nice, new, pretty feathers. And so those baby to juvenile to adult, they go through those same molts, and eventually their feathers come in looking nice like these ones. Now, if you're watching our penguin cam over the next couple weeks or so, you might notice that our penguins are looking kind of patchy. We noticed this morning there was one penguin who had a kind of almost looked like a bald spot on its head. Now that is because that penguin has started to molt. So we are in their molting season. So if you're watching our penguins over the next couple of weeks, you might notice that they maybe look a little bit scruffier than you're used to seeing them. And that is totally fine. It's totally normal. They're just going through that molt. And if you keep watching for a couple weeks after that, you'll see how they have all their brand new feathers and they're looking really spiffy. All right. Now that was a fun little talk about penguin babies, but we have a lot more cute little babies to take a look at. So we are going to switch over to a completely different type of animal, and we're going to take a look at 2 different types of cuttlefish or squid. Have you heard of cuttlefish and squid before? Think about octopus. They're a relative of octopus. So these are what we call invertebrates. Now that's a big fancy word, but it really means animals with no bones. So unlike those big tall penguins who are walking around and waddling on their little feet and flapping their little wings, we are going to look at really tiny animals who start off even tinier. So let's take a look at some cuttlefish or pajama squid. Now, I said cuttlefish or pajama squid because it's very confusing. Pajama squid are actually a type of cuttlefish. Now, cuttlefish is a relative of squid and octopus, so they're all in the same family. But this animal here is a pajama squid. I'm just going to get myself so confused. I hope I don't confuse you. One more time, this animal we are looking at is a pajama squid. Did you see it? Can you see it in this picture? I know it looks like we're kind of looking at a big pile of rocks or dirt, but right there in the middle, this little squish ball right here is a squid. That is our pajama squid. Now, what do you notice about this animal? Now, I know on the screen it might look kind of big, right? Standing next to me, it kind of looks large, but it's really only about an inch or two long. It's really tiny. So these are very small animals. So they start off really tiny, and they only grow to about an inch or two. So when they're born, they're even tinier. Now, think about how they're born. So we talked about the penguins. They are hatched from eggs. But these cuttlefish or these squid, they hatch from eggs as well. But their eggs are a lot tinier. And for animals like cuttlefish, squid, a lot of fish, they actually lay hundreds and thousands of eggs at a time. So whereas a penguin might lay 2 eggs at a time, animals like invertebrates, they tend to lay lots and lots and lots of eggs. And their eggs are really teeny tiny. And then from those eggs hatch those teeny tiny little squid, and then they eat and eat and eat, and they grow a little bit bigger. But not very big. Like I said, the grown pajama squid is only about 2 feet. Now, 2 feet, 2 inches. Oh boy. I'm going to give you all the incorrect information. That's not what you came here for. 2 inches. Now, take a look here. This is a baby pajama squid when it's first born or first hatched out of an egg. Did you spot it? Now, the first thing you notice might be that quarter, but that's to help us reference size. That's a dime. That's a dime. It's even smaller than I thought. Look at that. That is the little squid. So here's a dime. Think about a dime, really small. And this baby can fit on top of a dime and doesn't even take up that much space. So these animals are very teeny tiny once they hatch. Now, something interesting about the pajama squid is it's one of the few poisonous cuttlefish. Most cuttlefish aren't poisonous. There are a few who are, and the pajama squid is one of them. Now, it's hard to tell on this little tiny thing, but they have these black and white stripes that cover their body. And that is how they get their name, the pajama squid, because it kind of looks like pinstripe pajamas. Are you wearing pinstripe pajamas right now? Do you own a pair of pinstripe pajamas? I don't, but I remember my dad did when I was a kid, so it kind of looks like my dad's pajamas. And that's how they get their name, the pajama squid. And so we think one of the reasons they have those lines is it's kind of like a warning. So that's pretty common for us to see animals who are poisonous or venomous. So any animal that might have toxin in its body that they can use for protection, it would hurt another animal. They have some sort of warning based on the color pattern on their body, like those black and white stripes. Or some animals might have bright colors. So let's take a look at another type of cuttlefish, another baby cuttlefish. This one is called a flamboyant cuttlefish. And that word flamboyant, it means really fancy. Can you tell why we call these fancy cuttlefish? What do you notice? So this is a relative of that pajama squid. They're in the same family. They're both invertebrates. But take a look at how different these animals look. Now, they don't get much bigger than those pajama squid. Maybe a teeny bit, but not much bigger. So they stay pretty small. But these are definitely a highly poisonous type of cuttlefish. These are a highly poisonous type of cuttlefish. Now, take a moment to watch these, make some observations, and then we'll talk about what you notice happening. All right, did you notice the way they can change color on their body? So look really closely right here. It almost looks like waves of color going down the body of this cuttlefish. Oh, you can see it really cool right here as it looks like this little fellow is walking. So these cuttlefish, they can change color. And that helps with that flashy fanciness of them, is they have this kind of moving color on their body. Now, I mentioned that a lot of animals who have poison or venom or any kind of toxin in their body, they are bright colors. And that is why we think that this cuttlefish has these bright colors and can change their colors, is because they are poisonous and they want to warn other animals. It's pretty cool, right? Now, we do have a couple more baby animals to talk about, but we're going to pause for a moment because we have a surprise guest. Now, I didn't mention it before because I wanted it to be a surprise for all of you Barracuda Bunch, but we have one of our husbandry staff is going to come in, and they're going to bring another animal in with them to talk to you about Orion. And Orion is a kestrel, correct? You think? So it's going to be a bird that we're going to be able to talk about. So we're going to learn about some birds. So I'm going to step off the screen, and I am going to welcome Susan. She's going to come on into the studio and introduce you to one of our animals here at the aquarium.
My name is Susan. I am part of the husbandry team here at the aquarium, and we're doing a mic check, and we are on. Excellent, yay! So, this is called an American kestrel, and when I come out and do presentations for our school groups or for our guests, I would say the number one thing I get is, "Oh, he's so cute! He's a baby!" Guess what? He's not a baby. I know, crazy. But sometimes when animals are small, we instantly think they're babies because, babies are tiny. But this animal right here, full grown. He's over 15 years old. So he's definitely full grown. Now, he is called an American kestrel. He is a falcon, and he's the smallest species of falcon found in North America, meaning he's the smallest one that you're going to find throughout California and down into Mexico. Now, the cool thing is not only are they found here in California, but they're found across the entire United States, all the way to Florida. So they're found everywhere. Now, they eat a lot of different things, and I am going to offer him a piece of food today. So we see, oh, yep, we're hungry. Now, you notice it's red. He is a carnivore, so it is a meat item. And today it is mouse. All right, we feed him mouse. We feed him chick. Sometimes we feed him worms, waxworms, mealworms. We also feed him crickets. He thinks those are pretty tasty. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give him some food, and I want you to see how he eats. Now, that one just went right down the hatch. That was super quick. And I like to cut him into these little pieces so you guys can watch. And you can hear him. I don't know if you guys were able to hear that, but basically, did you already eat that piece of food? Okay, let's see if we can do another piece and see if he will actually show how he can swallow, but he can also tear it apart. Oop, no. Oh, there we go. Now, you notice how he uses his feet. Those are called talons, or those sharp parts on his toenails. And so he'll actually grab onto the food, and then he uses his beak to rip pieces off as to down the hatch it goes. And he'll rip them into these tiny, teeny pieces, and he eats all of it. He'll eat the skin. He'll eat the fur. He'll eat the meat. And he also has to eat the bones. Woo! That's called rousing. And what that is basically he's putting all of his feathers back into place. He is making sure that all those feathers are laying correctly. So if it were to rain or anything like that, it's covering all of his down feathers that keep him warm, because what he's rousing and putting down is basically his waterproofing feathers. All right. And sometimes they get messed up when we get them, or as they're preening and they got to put it all back together. Now I'm going to give him a bigger piece, and we're going to watch him chow down on this one. So here we go. Oh, there he is with his vocalizations. He's just going to eat this piece. Now, a few things about him. Like I said, he's not a baby. He is full grown. This is a male that we have here, and it's one of the few raptors or birds of prey that you can tell between the boys and the girls, or the males and the females. You'll notice this beautiful blue-gray right here on his wing. That blue-gray tells you he's a male, he's a boy. If it was all brown, it's going to be a girl, all right? So that's really, really an easy way to tell. Now, with them living in California all the way to Florida, California has a very different environment than Florida does. I used to live in Florida. In Florida, where I lived, it was very muggy. Now, it is muggy today in California, but it's muggy in Florida. It rains a lot. There are wetland areas. All these different areas are very different than here in Southern California. And the cool thing is they can live in both areas. They can also live in the desert. They can live in the woods. They can live in your neighborhood. So these animals adapt very well to living in all those places because as long as they have a safe place to be, some good food to eat, a mouse, lizard, bird, crickets, worms, anything like that, and they're able to find that food and eat it and also find possibly a mate, then they can live there. So they can live anywhere. But again, definitely not a baby. All right? How much more time do I have? Because I can talk for a long time, or how many facts? 2 minutes, awesome. I want you guys to take a look at, because you can really see it, the black underneath his eyes. All right, you see those stripes? I had someone ask me one time, a little kid, and she goes, do you put those on every morning? And I was like, I can't even do that on my own eyes very well. I was like, no. So those are built in. And they're built in for a very important reason. Can you think offhand of a sport that they put black underneath their eyes? Anyone thinking football? Yeah? Baseball? You're exactly right. And the reason being is because it reflects the sun. So when the ball's up in the air, they don't get, as these lights are right in my eyeballs, all right? What happens is it reflects off and they can see and catch the ball even better than what they would. He has them built in. So as he's flying around, and he's fast, remember, he's a falcon. As he's flying around and he sees a bird, he could actually catch that bird in midair, straight out of the air. And he has those black lines to help him reflect the sun so he can catch them. So these guys have them. Picture a cheetah in your head, same exact thing. So animals are amazing that they have these built-in things to help them hunt even better. But again, not a baby, right? Full-grown adult. Now he's just going to keep working on this. It looks like he has a little bit more bone to pick out, a little more some fat, which is really important for them. And of course, the bones are, especially when they're little. If you think of infant babies, what do we drink? We drink milk. It helps our bones. These guys need the bones, as you see, especially when they're young, to help build their bones. But again, just because he's small doesn't mean he's a baby. All right? Oh, he got that last piece. All right. Well, we're going to head out, hopefully learn some amazing things about American kestrels. And the next time you see one or listen to him, they have a very distinct call. But if he's this big, full grown. All right? Take care, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Susan and Orion, for coming on in. And what a great connection to learn about birds and see that even that bird who looks small like a baby is full grown. So just like we were looking at the squid, even though those squids start really, really tiny, when they're full grown, they might look like a baby because they're so little, but they are adults even when they're little. So what a great way to connect to all our baby animals. And even connecting back to those penguins, we got to see him rouse or ruffle up his feathers and then put them all into place, just like our penguins do. And Susan talked about having those downy and waterproof feathers. And even though Orion lives in a very different habitat than our penguins, they have a lot of similarities because they're both birds. So I hope you enjoyed meeting our special surprise guest today. Now we have a couple more minutes, so let's get back to talking about some baby animals. So we talked about the pajama squid and the flamboyant cuttlefish and how they're really tiny. And then as they grow, they're still pretty tiny, but we also talked about the really cool colors on their body. We're going to switch over to another animal that starts off kind of small, grows a little bit bigger. We're going to talk about some sharks. Now, have you ever wondered what a baby shark looks like, or even how a shark is born? Well, let's take a look. All right, take a look at this. I was going to step off the screen, but you can see right here. What do you think this is here? Any ideas? Think about how we talked about penguin chicks hatch from eggs. Those cuttlefish, those little babies hatch from eggs. And some sharks even hatch from an egg as well. Now, not all sharks hatch from eggs. Sharks are a really interesting animal where they can give birth in a couple different ways. But the sharks that we're going to focus on today, they do lay eggs. So this egg case right here is from a bamboo shark. So we have two sharks we're going to talk about, bamboo sharks and epaulet sharks that both lay eggs, and we have them here. So this is what the egg looks like. Now, in this middle, this big circle thing, that's not the egg, that's the yolk. So animals who are born from an egg, inside the egg, they need to get nutrients because even though they're in that egg, they still need to grow. And you need nutrients in order to grow. And so that yolk provides the shark with nutrients. And then this little thing right here above it, that is the baby shark. All right, are you ready to see what they look like once they're out of the egg? All right, let's take a look. Ta-da! A little noodle. That's what I think they look like, little noodles. So this right here is a baby bamboo shark. Now we have bamboo sharks and epaulet sharks here, and the babies, they do look like this, and they are as adorable or even cuter if you see them live in person. Now bamboo sharks, when they're born, they are about 5 to 7 inches. So they're really only about this long, very small. And then they'll grow to about 2 to 3 feet. So they can grow quite a bit. But they're a smaller shark than some of the big sharks we think about. But they look like this. They have this really unique pattern, that dark brown and light brown stripes along their body. And then as they grow, their body looks pretty much the same. They just get larger, but their color is going to change a little bit. Do we have a picture of an adult bamboo shark? Here we go. So here are the adults. So look how much larger or longer their bodies are. And even though these are kind of far away, their color fades a little bit. So those bars, that brown and tan bars, aren't as distinct. They're a little bit more spread out and a little bit lighter on their body. But here are what the adult bamboo sharks look like. Now, I said these sharks are only about 3 feet long. So these are the sharks that are found in our touch pools here at the aquarium. So if you come visit us, you can actually pet these sharks. They're completely safe to pet. These are what we call bottom feeders. So their mouth is actually on the bottom, and they feed on things that they can find in the sand, like hidden here. So they're going to be feeding on things like clams, shrimp, any kind of invertebrates they can find hiding in the sand. Pretty cool to watch. They kind of have this really flexible, almost slinky-like body, and that's because their skeleton is made of cartilage. And that's what we have in our nose and our ears, and it's really flexible, and that allows them to be really great swimmers. Now, do we have a picture of a baby epaulet shark? All right, so we're going to take a look at a different shark baby, very similar to the bamboo shark. Oop, I'm standing in the way. Look at that. That one is definitely noodly. What do you think? What do you notice on this shark? So just like that bamboo shark baby, epaulet shark babies are hatched out of an egg, and the egg looks very similar to the egg we saw before. So that baby's feeding off of the yolk, and then they hatch out of the egg. Now, the gestation period, or how long that this animal spends in the egg, is a couple months for these sharks. For sharks who lay eggs, it kind of depends on the temperature of the water. So these two sharks, the bamboo shark and the epaulet shark, are tropical sharks. And that means that they live in warm water. And so the time that these sharks spend in their egg is about 2, 3, 4 months. Now, if they were more local to us here in California, where our water is colder, that baby is going to stay in their egg a lot longer, and it can be more to 8, 9 months. So it just depends on where that shark lives and what the temperature of the water is. So the warmer water, less time spent in the egg. Colder water, a little bit longer. But take a look. This shark has those same stripes of color, but they're a little bit faded. But did you notice this spot right here? It almost looks like it's a hole on the body of this shark, but that's actually a big black spot. All right, we've got another picture to show you. There we go. Take a look at this. So this is another picture of a baby epaulet shark, and we can notice that big spot in it right here. Now, that is really important. That's one way we can identify that this shark is an epaulet shark, because those bamboo sharks, they don't have this spot. But why do you think this animal has a big spot on its body like this? If you were saying for protection or to scare off other animals, that is absolutely correct. So we call it a false eye spot. So if a predator is looking for the head of this animal and they see this big spot right here, they might get confused because they might think that that is the head. But is it quite the head of the animal? Not yet. The head is right here. Also, in the ocean, big eyes can be a kind of a scary thing. So some animals have really big eyes as a warning or to scare off other animals. So this animal that has a really little eye has a pretend big eye, and it can scare off other animals because they make it think it looks really big and scary, but it's really not its eye. It's just its false eye spot. Now, something interesting about our epaulet sharks are their fins. So take a look. They've got these fins, so they can swim around just like those bamboo sharks. But sometimes you might hear people refer to the epaulet shark as one who can walk on land. Now, they can't walk on land like we can, but take a look at these fins. They're pretty long. And so what they're able to do is they use those fins to kind of scurry across rocks. So if they're in the water and there's a little rock, like maybe a little mini rock island, and they want to get over it, they can scurry across it using those those fins to walk across it. So the baby epaulet shark is born about the same size as the baby bamboo shark, and then they grow to about the same size as the adult bamboo. Do we have a picture of an adult epaulet? Or just the baby? So we don't have any pictures of the adult. We only have one adult epaulet here at the aquarium. So it's a treat when you get to see her. She likes to hide a lot. But this is what the babies look like, these little noodles. All right, everyone, we are about out of time. So that was sort of our whirlwind look at some baby animals. We started off talking about penguins. We took a look at some squid and cuttlefish. We got to meet Orion, our American kestrel. And then we learned a little bit about some baby sharks. So I hope you enjoyed hanging out with us this morning. We have more programming tomorrow for our Barracuda bunch, so we hope you join us then. And if you're looking for more activities, go ahead and visit our website. We have some at-home activities to do connected with this class. All right, everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll see you later.